Section 40 of the Soul, or Rational Psychology. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Soul, or Rational Psychology, by Emanuel Swedenborg. Translated by Frank Sewall, 1837 to 1915, and others. Section 40. Chapter 24. Influx of the spiritual mind or of the soul into the animus, and of the animus into the spiritual mind. 473. The pure intellectory is that in which the animus at first resides, for it is in this as a pure natural mind. This, because it is of the intellectory, which is formed entirely from the substance of its own soul, must of necessity be also formed after the mind or spirit of its own soul. So that such as is the soul, such shall be the animus in its very formation, even while lying concealed in the womb, and during earliest infancy. For then indeed the animus is entirely subject to the spiritual mind. But afterwards, when the rational mind is formed, and the states of the intellectory begin to depend on this state of the sensories, then begins as it were an inversion, and the animus depends on an influx of objects and of harmonies through the external senses from the world, and by the blood from the body. 474. From these facts it follows that the spiritual mind flows into the animus, even to being its essence and life. For this cannot exist and subsist without the spiritual mind. Wherefore also the spiritual mind always loves the animus. But when the animus rebels and wishes to render itself superior, then it is rejected by the spiritual mind, and a perpetual battle arises, almost as if it were between God and the devil. Each desires to occupy the rational mind, but the victory belongs to but one. Nor can the animus be expelled suddenly, but there must be perseverance even to the end of life. 475. When therefore the bad animus has been changed into a good one, or a good into a bad one, thus as an acquired nature tries to expel the old nature, then is the former animus changed, and the animus being changed, the state of the soul is thereupon changed, not by influx, however, but by correspondence, the rational mind acting as medium, and the divine grace concurring. There must be a disposition that the spiritual mind may be able to flow in with its loves, at least a rejection of the loves of the animus, so that the soul may be disposed to flow in with its spiritual loves, or at least that the mind may be disposed to the influx of those loves. The intellect here contributes nothing, except it be from what is revealed. But faith springing from God, and his divine power being implored, his spirit flows into the soul and changes its state, or perfects it. But long exercise is needed, if the soul be bad, that it may become good, although not so long to restore a good soul by a change of mind. Thus there is a certain election of souls, for without a miraculous and particular favor, a bad soul cannot at once be made good. But there must be a self-compulsion, and most ardent prayer, and continual zeal for that which is truly spiritual and divine. These appear to be the true principles for our attainment of spiritual perfection. For something spiritual and divine flows down from above into what is below, nor can what is without bring any change upon what is within, except by correspondence. And such correspondence does not exist in the soul except from the divine gift. The influx of the spiritual loves of the soul into the rational mind, and the reverse. 476. The spiritual mind, or what is of the soul, can never flow into the rational mind except through the animus, or by its means. hence only while the animus is subject to the spiritual mind. Therefore, in order that the spiritual mind may flow in, the animus must be subjugated, so that it obey and does not command. For the soul cannot flow into the internal sensory except by means of the intellectory. Hence we see how the spiritual can flow in, namely, when the affections of the animus are wholly submissive, and are held in check so as not to occupy the mind, and when the mind suffers itself to be acted upon, and not even now, unless the intellect knows from revelation what part is to be chosen or what is divine, the verily good, the just, and true. Then, inasmuch as the mind does not understand this of itself, it ought to pray to God that he will inspire faith and love, for obtaining which many spiritual means are revealed. Thus at length the spiritual mind is able to flow into the rational mind, for so remote and deeply within dwells the spiritual mind that it is impossible to approach it immediately, or except by a universal means or by the animus. Hence it is evident how difficult it is to turn a bad soul into a good one, and that this is the work of divine grace alone. Only there must be the persevering human application. End of section 40.